My name is Richard Avery with Titanium Computing, the element needed to keep your business running. I'm the owner of Titanium. We were founded in 2016. It's been an interesting journey, but we are an MSP that focuses on cybersecurity as well as the standard IT MSP landscape. What I mean by cybersecurity, there's a lot of MSPs out there that just throw an S in their name and call themselves a managed service or managed security service provider. I am a former DoD cybersecurity professional. I did 3 deployments, civilian deployments to Iraq, 3 civilian deployments to Afghanistan. I've worked with multiple different government entities, L3, Lockheed, Boeing, Northrop Grumman. I work with the energy sector. I work Department of Energy. I work with the FBI. So I've got a lot of cybersecurity certifications, and I've got a lot of pen testing certifications. I know how to crack Wi-Fi. I know how to, do Mimikatz and pass the hash and inject and take over systems. As a matter of fact, I break into systems to acquire customers live in front of them to showcase how insecure their environment is. So we take a very different approach than the normal MSP of just closing tickets. We understand the cybersecurity landscape and the real risks that are out there. Titanium has been in business since 2016. That's when I put my hat up working for the Department of Defense. I realized that there was a huge breadth of requirements understanding the real cybersecurity risks for small, medium businesses and the impacts that a cybersecurity event to them could have, and decided to start an MSP. I thought I could do it better and a whole bunch of other factors. So our growth has been pretty great. I've got 11 technicians at this point. And as I plan on growing more and taking over more market share, I'm in Austin, Texas. And Austin, Texas is just a gigantic, booming city for a bunch of different things. Our property is going up. There's estimated 200 people or near 200 people moving here every day. So I don't need to go acquire customers from another MSP. There's just businesses popping up left and right that I can service. So trajectory-wise, I'm looking forward to a couple of years of pretty impressive growth. So my target customer is anywhere from a single solopreneur all the way up to people that have hundreds of endpoints, which is the standard MSP target. Most MSPs want to hit, 30 to 100 is their sweet spot, whereas that really doesn't solve the cybersecurity problem. Most CPAs or accountants or therapists, they're 1-man, 2-man, maybe 3-man shops. Big CPAs are certainly in existence, but I've been to CPA conferences and 90% of the population are single-man shops. And that is a huge problem because MSPs and IT companies are ignoring delivering cybersecurity services to the organizations that actually need it the most. And that's usually people that are 1 to 5 individuals. The products I use in my cybersecurity stack are vast. As somebody who bypasses antivirus on the regular, I literally have advanced servers in the back that have virtual machines and plans for more, and every one has a different antivirus product so that we can practice writing malware and seeing evasion techniques like MITRE attack platform stuff, and see how people can get around latest antivirus defenses, which is why having that understanding, we really lean on ThreatLocker. It doesn't matter what antivirus we have installed if the program is a well-known program, or it's a supply chain software compromise, or it's some sort of hardware injection. Not all antiviruses protect against USB attacks. ThreatLocker is the go-to, where I deploy it at my cost in some instances, because I just don't want to ever have to worry about that conversation. It secures the environment in a way that no other antivirus can, and frankly, no other whitelist application product can. There were other whitelist application products that I looked at, and I broke half of them personally. So ThreatLocker is really the go-to. I would consider it the best of its product in the space at this point in time. The unified audit is critical in developing a greater understanding of how your systems operate. And that is one of the things that I am exceptionally thankful for. Most people don't realize that PowerShell just runs once a day on nearly every computer everywhere. They don't understand that Dell is running updates every day, that all of these programs are calling home and running just checks. They're running system checks, they're running driver updates. If you don't understand what's happening beneath the hood, ThreatLocker will teach it to you clearly and plainly. And when you've got it across multiple clients, you can be like, oh, is this environment compromised? I see these weird things running, and I see some PowerShell here, and I see some PowerShell there. Am I hacked? No, you can go over to another customer and you can see that that's the exact same thing over there. Or you can notice that Dell machines like to run a particular attempted update or an attempted PowerShell script. You can learn more. It's not just antivirus saying, hey, we stopped a thing, but we're not going to tell you about the thing we stopped. And we're not going to give you explicit information about the thing that we stopped. ThreatLocker educates you. It says, hey, this is what we stopped. This is why we stopped it. And here is its hash. Here's its certificate from its developer. Here's its SHA. So we know more about the product itself. This is the path it executed from. Is that where that file's supposed to be? There's more education that comes along with it for the technicians, for my people, so they learn faster about cybersecurity threats because ThreatLocker is teaching them through the unified audit. The reason I looked into a zero trust endpoint security solution was I needed something that could stop me. And that's really became the bottom line. From someone who has been using rubber duckies for 10 years, who's been following Hack5, who's been in the hacker space. I remember this operating system called Backtrack. And I was using Backtrack version 1 before the newer versions came out. Backtrack eventually turned into Kali Linux. And, there's just, I'm pre-Metasploit days in doing these things. So it comes down to understanding that you really can't trust anything. And you have to have visibility. One of the descriptors I use for my clients is to say, hey, if there's $1 million behind that door, and I can guarantee you that that door is not monitored or watched, here's a set of lockpicks. You can take as much time as you need. You're going to eventually get through that door, even if you know nothing about picking locks. And that mindset is why I needed to have a product that could stop people, even if it was them trying to install the most innocuous of programs. Somebody's just trying to install VLC or install Notepad++. That's what I need ThreatLocker for. I need ThreatLocker to stop everything that isn't on an approved list that I can look at, that I can manage, that I can control. And it's really been a game changer for us at Titanium. And I think it's going to be a game changer industry-wide. There's so much software out there that wants to run at administrative level or a local admin. And most people realize that's half of the battle for an attacker or a hacker is just to get local administrative rights. The moment I have local admin rights on a domain, it's game over, right? So I need to stop that privilege escalation that happens from user to local administrator. If they're already local administrator in a dental clinic and every single piece of software runs as local administrator, that's going to be a bad time. So I need to rely on ThreatLocker to be like, I don't care if you're an administrator. You still don't get to run that, even if it's on the domain controller. I don't care if you're an administrator. I don't care if you're a domain admin. You don't get to run that. So that's what I needed. I needed a product to fit that spot, and ThreatLocker just became far and away the best option. The only challenge that exists in implementing ThreatLocker is if you're going from a zero trust environment, you need to have something really robust for the 30 days or so that you're in learning mode. You really have to have high monitoring. You have to have high trust in your antivirus solution. That 30 days is critical from a zero trust standpoint. As long as you can make it through that, ThreatLocker will get you through all the rest. The ThreatLocker allows us to achieve our goals and objectives via education and via translation of the technology, right? We have an accelerated learning path here at Titanium, and ThreatLocker helps us with that. But it also helps us with the accountability. It helps us by being able to pull a dashboard up in front of a customer and saying, here is everything that got ran in your environment that would have been denied or was denied. And if somebody has come to us, which has happened, and they said, we're concerned that data was breached and we got something happened, can you provide us with logs accounting for activity on our network? And the answer is, yeah, here you can. Here's all the logs. And usually their eyes go wide because they're like, this is way more than I expected to be given. And that is the biggest impact to them when they're really like, oh, you guys really are securing, you really are monitoring, you really are looking at a bunch of things that are happening in my environment. I feel safe. I feel I have a warm fuzzy now because I've come to you, I've asked for accountability, and you've given me way more than I expected. And ThreatLocker enables us to do that by saying, hey, here's the DLLs that ran. Hey, here's the update patches that ran. Where's this ran, and this updated, and this was executed, and who executed it, and on what machine it was executed, and all of that. ThreatLocker allows us to do more than just secure. It allows us to create accountability and training. In the operations day-to-day, ThreatLocker hasn't impacted in that regard because we're scaling and growing rapidly. When I first onboarded ThreatLocker, it was me and 3 other technicians, and now I have 11. So no matter the metrics I use, I have a lot more tickets now than I did then. And now, from that standpoint, ThreatLocker has saved nightmares from happening because someone has brought in something questionable, or brought in, a virus or some malware or ransomware into an environment. And it was ThreatLocker that came in and saved the day, possibly. But it definitely was the product that stopped the attack. And that has lowered ticket volume because it's lowered emergency requirements. As far as existing customers or existing bundles that I offered to customers, ThreatLocker became an upsell to start. And that was me sacrificing profit on the front end by saying, excuse me, Mr. Customer, I'm going to install this on your server so that your server is more secure and we have no worries about the server. But maybe you want to know what this does because you might want this installed on other machines inside your environment. So I would lead the educational conversation with the customer with a free demo and assure them, hey, this is already installed on your server. You're not going to pay for it. But then I educated them on it, and then they would say, yeah, I want that here, here, and here, and here, and here. So they identified what they considered the more critical pieces of their organization, and it almost always assuredly became an upsell. The biggest challenges I foresee for the MSP and IT space as a whole is compliance and laws and certification requirements. There's lots of speak about state and municipalities requiring some sort of certification or some sort of proof that the MSP is capable of doing the job that they say that they're capable of doing. Because too many municipalities have been ransomwared, too many organizations have been compromised, and they turn to the MSP and they're like, hey, we thought you had our back. And the MSP is like, oh, sorry that you didn't buy that product, or you didn't let us upsell you, or you didn't like, they push the problem back onto the customer and they say, hey, well, like, this is your fault. You didn't buy the product we told you to buy, which the municipality doesn't care. The state doesn't care. They're going to push that up, and that's eventually going to become legislation. So I think that we're going to be having an environment where MSPs are going to be held accountable more so than they already are, for PCI compliance, for HIPAA compliance, for cybersecurity. I'm in Texas, so there is cybersecurity training requirements for any state organization, any school or organization that gets funding from the state in any way, shape, or form. They must have cybersecurity training by Texas law. We have another law that is beyond HIPAA, which is called House Bill 300. It's super HIPAA. But most people don't care about it, and most people don't follow those things. So it becomes I think that in the next couple of years, you will see required certification, almost like a low voltage cable technician in California, or a plumber, or an electrician. There'll have to be some sort of third party regulatory agency. They might just say, hey, you have to have 10 certifications of an IT vendor, you have to have this, you have to have that. But I think there's going to be a rubber meets the road time when IT companies and MSPs are going to have to prove they have good security, and a state agency is going to come in and audit them and make sure that they've done the accountability. And I think ThreatLocker fits a great overarching coverage for those requirements so that MSPs can get ahead of that regulation curve and get products in place now that will meet it. So would I recommend ThreatLocker to my peers? Absolutely, and I have. I've introduced other MSPs to ThreatLocker. I've introduced other IT companies to ThreatLocker. And I just think that it's a requirement in this space. You know, if you're going to spend $5 to $15, depending what you're buying, a month for antivirus, you should be spending that for a secondary piece of software. You should be spending it because most MSPs and IT companies are not calculating in the cost of the event. They're calculating in the cost of the software. They're calculating in the cost of the technician. They're not calculating in the cost that when a compromise happens, their company as well as the client grind to a halt. Right? You suddenly got your best technicians and your most capable people going and dealing with a fire that probably shouldn't have started, and ThreatLocker would have stopped from even, sparking in the first place. So you need to have alerting and reporting and some sort of monitoring solution. But when the rubber meets the road, it's really stopping the execution of the attacks, and that's ThreatLocker.